Welcome to the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast from Nashville, Tennessee. I am your host, John Martin Keith. Celebrities, working class musicians, and people who work behind the scenes in all areas of the music industry will share their stories, encourage you, and give practical advice of ways you can make a living doing what you love in the music industry. This episode is brought to you by Edenbrook Productions. Edenbrook Productions is the company I founded to help musicians grow in their craft. Are you a songwriter, but maybe you've been told your songs aren't quite there yet? Or are your songs ready, but you don't feel stage ready? Or maybe music is your passion, but you feel imprisoned by your day job and you don't know what to do next to make your dream a reality? Well, Edenbrook Productions is here to help. We offer consulting services via phone call, Skype, and FaceTime. And for the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast listeners, we're offering an introductory 1-hour consultation special. Click on the link in the show notes to contact me, and let's get you making a living in the music industry. Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today. This week I'm talking with Adam Taylor, president of APM Music. APM is the world's leading creative music house and production music library. With placements in network TV, Netflix, and Disney Plus, to tons of blockbuster films, it's no wonder APM is at the forefront of the sync and music production library world. Crazy thing about Adam, he has no musical bone in his body. Yet he runs the largest music production library in the world. We're discussing how someone with no musical background can become the leader of a music-related company, the key to the music library business, and what APM looks for when hiring new staff members. Please enjoy my conversation with Adam Taylor. Hey guys, I am talking with Adam Taylor, who is the president of APM Music. Hey Adam, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Great to be on here. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for being on my show. I'm so excited to finally get to talk to you. I know we've been working for a couple of weeks trying to get this put together, and so I'm grateful. And you're in LA, and I'm in Nashville. So at the time of recording, it's like early in the morning for you to do this. So.
Yeah, it's not that early.
But I appreciate you coming on and talking. And I've been wanting to connect with APM Music for a while. So when I reached out and you actually responded to my email, I was surprised it was such a quick response, and grateful that, the president of a huge, production library and, and music house would be willing to take time out so easly to do that. So I know you got a lot going on. So
not a problem at all.
So tell us, who you are, where you're from, how you grew up, what kind of got you into the music business, and leading you down this path to APM.
Oh, that's a lot of stuff. So where to start? Well, I am from New York. I was born in Manhattan, and my first few years were relatively uneventful. But my parents did move up to the suburbs north of New York City in a town called Mamaroneck, and in Westchester County, and I grew up there. I was there, had a great, fun childhood, nothing to do with the music business. My father was in the cosmetics and pharmaceutical industry, and so just did my thing as a kid, and went to college in Worcester, Massachusetts, and did a major in physics at Worcester Polytechnic Institute and a minor in philosophy at Clark University, and then went back to New York and wanted to wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I went to work for my father. My father owned a company called Caswell Massey, and Caswell Massey was founded in 1752. It's the oldest chemists and perfumers in the United States. The company still makes the colognes it used to make for George Washington and Marquis de Lafayette and Dolly Madison and other people. It has a long and storied history.
That's
it also
super
imports.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a great company, and it also imports products from all over the world, all personal care kinds of products, shampoos, lotions, colognes, potpourri, all kinds of oddities and things. And so, and my parents, my father and my uncle started working for the Caswells in 1916, and my father and he bought the business in 1936. So I went into it after college years ago, and ended up there for 17 years, and vowed never to stay somewhere that long again. And now I've been at APM running it for 21 years. So there you go. Not so good at predicting the future.
So you didn't grow up doing music, and that's interesting. I think you're probably the first guest that I've had on that doesn't have a background in music to some degree, I would guess. So I'm curious as what led you from working in cosmetics and perfume to moving into music. I'm sure there's a whole story in between those two things.
Sure.
So what led you over to the direction of music?
So I was always passionate about music. I'm an amateur when it comes to playing music, and people ask me if I write for our library, and I say jokingly that I'm only good to put in our competitors. And they also ask me if I write music, and I say no. If I wrote two notes, one of them would be wrong. So
right.
I didn't grow up with that, and my parents weren't into it. But I always loved pop music, and I loved rock music later on, and in college and things. And so, very passionate about it. And in college, my fraternity ran the concerts for the school, and so I got to meet some interesting people along the way. And when there were concerts at our school, I remember meeting James Taylor and spending time with him, and Alice Cooper and a few other people. And it was like, as a kid in college, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I still did not get into the music business. I went to work for my father's company, and in that company, there were a lot of really interesting people who came into the store, and so I would, anytime anybody interesting would come in, I would try to wait on them and spend time with them. And I got to meet a lot of really interesting people, met some people who were managers in the business, and ended up spending a lot of time at that time while I was working at the family business, both first in the store and then in the offices for years, and then eventually became the president of the company. Spend a lot of time, my free time in the music area with a lot of music people. So I got to meet a lot of really interesting people. And so people at my company were always asking me to tell the stories. I should write them down at some point. But
I probably should write a book.
Yeah, if I had the time. But spent a lot of time with Kiss and Led Zeppelin and other people. And so I was fortunate to be able to have that experience. And I was never in the music business, though. And I came to APM because I had gone down to Florida with my family to run a public company down there for a few years, and I was feeling like I wanted to get back to New York or LA, and because I had been living in Los Angeles. And so happily, a friend of ours was visiting in Florida who was in the music business, somebody I'd known for a long, long time. And I told him I was looking for something new. And he said that, there's this company we own part of, and we've been looking for somebody new to run it for a while, and maybe you'd be interested. And one thing led to another. And in June of 2001, I came to APM to run it. Moved back from Florida to Los Angeles, and kind of the rest is history. It's been great, life-changing, really.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to ask then, for someone who doesn't have a background in music, what makes somebody say, we want to hire you to lead a music company who doesn't have a background in music? And I mean, obviously you've got a business background, obviously. But is that all they needed? Was it because you're looking at it from a business aspect of it as opposed to a music business aspect? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I should say there was one thing that I skipped over by accident, which is that I did spend a number of years producing programming. So I had gotten into the entertainment business, had a partnership with a friend of mine who was a producer. And we ended up producing a TV movie and a primetime TV series and some documentaries. And it gave me an understanding of the entertainment business. And so that was very, very helpful. But I think that when I was considering whether or not I wanted to do this and whether or not I could do it, because I only wanted to come into it if I felt I could do um, a good job, because after all, they weren't saying, well, come in at a low level and work your way up. They were saying,
Right.
come in and be the president and CEO of the company.
Right.
So I had to really make sure I felt that I knew I could do it. And I did a lot of research and a lot of thinking. And um, my background, even though, I was in cosmetics and then I was in entertainment with the TV programming stuff, really what it was is it's the exploitation of intellectual property.
Okay.
So at my company, founded in 1752, we had all kinds of formulas and stories and things. And really the way that we marketed ourselves was we told our stories. So the Caswell Massey story emerged out of the stories that we told and the history of the company. And so managing intellectual property, figuring out what is going to motivate somebody to buy, was very similar to what I was doing in entertainment. I also had another kind of era where I was taking scientific inventions that scientists and doctors had invented that had potential as consumer products, and I was turning them into consumer products. Again, taking their intellectual property and figuring out what to do with them. And we were selling in stores and on Home Shopping Network and QVC, and we did infomercials and things. And so it all of that kind of had a theme, a thread, which was how do you exploit intellectual property? And so when I came to be considering APM, it really was the same thing for me. So this is intellectual property. How do you market intellectual property? And I already knew how to run a company. At Caswell Massey, we had about 300 employees, and not a large company, but not small. And at APM, we have about 85 people. So the skill sets that I learned previously on the job in my former occupations really helped me to do what I do now.
Okay. Well, that's really cool. And I think that's super encouraging for a lot of people that are listening because, there are so many of us that, excuse me, that listen to the show that, we do have a music background. That's how we grew up. And so, a lot of people, a lot of musicians don't have the business aspect. They don't have the brain to do that business side. It's all creative, right? Or it's kind of one or the other. A lot of people don't have both necessarily. But I think it's encouraging for people to hear that are not necessarily musically inclined, but love music and want to work in the music business to some level, some degree. And you have shown just by that little bit of conversation that someone who does not have a musical background can run a huge music company, so that's a really encouraging thing, I think, for a lot of people to hear that. They're like, there is hope for me. There's something that I can do, and I can be a part of this industry, even though I don't have a musical bone in my body necessarily.
Well, I think that is true. I think that it helps to have a passion for music.
Sure.
It's you should have a passion for whatever you do, and like Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. Try to find something that's going to help give your life meaning because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it.
Right.
So I think that's very, very important. And a lot of people obviously do have passion for the music business and really want to be in it and don't necessarily know what role they can play. So I think, like you mentioned, there's kind of, two sides to the brain or two types of brains or whatever. There's the business side, the music side. I have the business side, but not the music side in the sense of being able to write or play. And but I do tell people that there are two words in the phrase music business. So, both of them are really equally as important. And to the extent that somebody who is on the music side can either nurture some understanding of the business side or partner with somebody who has that skill, I think it's a really important thing. It's like filmmakers or writers partner with producers. because there are really oftentimes different skill sets and not everybody has both.
Right.
So I think that finding the right people to work with, understanding that if you're a musician, composer, songwriter, lyricist, and you don't want to spend time too much on the business side, then partner up with somebody. I think that's worthwhile. If you are on the business side, then what is it that you want to do? And there are many different aspects. There are things where you're actually working with artists. On the creative side, there's certainly A&R, artist and repertoire, where you're going out and trying to identify artists who are good and worth pursuing and working with. And then there are oftentimes in companies very nuts and bolts kind of work that on its surface can be routine or by rote or boring and data oriented and things. But I think that in most companies, certainly the ones that have an eye towards growth, look to see what more can they do with their employees, with their staff, and they want people who are going to think out of the box, who are going to go beyond the norm and go beyond the job description. And we have many, many people in our company who started off as receptionists, and or we call them front desk assistant or something, I forget exactly, but because they're not just, there's not somebody walking in to the door every single second or calling every second on the phone, and they have a lot of other things that we give them to do. And but they started that way and have reached very good, important levels within the organization, even heading up departments. So I think that find opportunities, find companies where you like the people, you're interested in what they're doing. If they're in a particular aspect of music, then you like that kind of music. That's great. And both of my children are two boys. They're 26 and 24. They're DJs and electronic music writers, and one of them works at an electronic music company because he likes that kind of music. So that tie into what you are going to have fun doing.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So APM has been around for over 35 years. It's considered the world's leading creative music house and production music library. When I was looking on the website and just kind of getting some information early on, I saw that you've got over 160 different libraries, at least over 885,000 tracks within your platform for productions to get music from you guys to use in their in their different types of productions. And so between TV and internet and movies and online content and social media, whatever, all that kind of stuff, you guys provide music for all of those different things. So when I see 885,000 tracks, that's it's an overwhelming number.
We're actually over 1 million at this time.
Well, at this time, so
I think we have to change
you probably need to update the website
copy. Yes, exactly. Thank you for that. I'll make a note.
Sure. So okay, so then that's even more staggering. Over 1 million, tracks. So, as a writer, because I'm an artist and a writer, and I write production music, and I do, I live in that world. Mm-hmm. And so, for people listening that are like me and who do this, on that side of things and work with companies like yours, and we send a company music, a library music, and get it put in. It's it feels like just on the surface that it can get just lost because there's over 1 million tracks. So how do you encourage people that you work with, artists that you work with, and producers and writers that, hey, if you're going to send music to us and we're going to put it in our library, that there's potential for it to land somewhere because it's in a sea of 1 million plus songs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And to clarify, we have about 310,000 original compositions. And then, of course, in the library business, you need multiple versions. You need cut downs and underscore and stings and links
Right.
and licks and things like that. And so, with all of the versions, it totals over 1 million. But there are about 310 or so thousand original compositions. Now, that still is a staggering amount.
Sure.
But the mission of APM is different than a lot of other libraries, and certainly than the niche libraries and even some of the larger libraries. Our mission is to be able to satisfy every client need. So if you have every musical need, if you come in and you are looking for a particular type of music, then our mission is to make sure that we have it. So whether you want a Gregorian chant or you want something in the latest hip hop, or you want something that is inspired by Lizza or Dua Lipa or somebody, we have that, and that's very important for us. And also, we're a large library in terms of the number of clients that we have. So we have thousands and thousands and thousands of clients, and tens of thousands, if not, hundreds, over 100,000 perhaps, people using our music on a regular basis. And so you never know what somebody wants. And so we're continually releasing new music into the library. There's a lot going on all the time because there are new things that come up. People burn through some of the older stuff. On the other hand, people want archival music that we have. And so we get a lot of activity in our music. And so you never know what somebody's going to want. And our mission is to have the music. So does something get lost? I mean, only in the sense that it is one of, many albums or one of many tracks. But at the same time, we have many, many people coming. And the idea is to try to understand what people are looking for. That's our job. And also a songwriter or composer who wants to work in the library business should go to the sites of the popular libraries and see what's current. What are the new releases? What are people doing right now? And to get a sense of how you, as an artist, might be able to contribute to that. Because we're going to be looking for music that is in a particular genre, of a particular style. However, we want songwriters and composers who have their own style, who have their own voice. There are many ways to do a piece of trailer music or promo music or underscore or write something in the style of Miles Davis or Taylor Swift, Mm-hmm. So everybody is going to do something different. So I think you have to develop your skills, make sure you have a sense of confidence about what you're doing and that you have your own voice rather than trying to imitate other people. And then your music will get found and it will get used.
Thank you. That's great. So because you're such a large company, and I know you guys have music in lots of different blockbuster movies. I know that Top Gun Maverick, you got music in that movie, which is considered one of the biggest movies ever. Mm-hmm. So congratulations for getting to be a part of that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
As well as the new version of Dune. You guys have music in that as well, which was an amazing movie. And my family watched that recently, actually, and thought that the music and sound design and everything. I know that sound design is sort of a different thing, but the music that was in it was so unique, so cool, and so that you guys get to be a part of that is really special. I think to kind of have a foothold in that world. And
yeah, it's great to be a part of it. Of course, much of the work in top movies like that is done by the composers,
right?
And
yeah.
In that case, Hans Zimmer.
Sure.
But we are very proud to be a part of it, and our music is music for storytelling.
Yeah.
And if the music helps to tell the story, then we're happy.
Sure. So for artists and writers that want to get in to work with APM or any other library, but specifically for you guys with our conversation, what is it that you're looking for specifically in bringing in new writers and producers and artists, and how often are you looking to bring people in? Does someone just send you, a submission on the website and say, do you guys have that on the website? Or if someone emails you, says, hey, I'm an artist, writer, producer, I want to write music for APM. Do you just say, hey, send us some tracks, let's hear it? Or do you, I know a lot of libraries only do take submissions for certain periods of time, like maybe each year. It's a very limited kind of a thing. How do you guys typically do that, and what are you looking for?
Sure. So first, it'll help if I give a 2-minute history of APM, because
Perfect.
the structure of APM is different than most other libraries.
Okay.
So we were founded in 1983 by EMI and ATV, which soon became Zamba. Their interest in the library world was bought out by Zamba. So for a long time, we were owned by EMI and Zamba. Zamba at that time was the largest independent music company in the world, and they had Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears, all at the peak of their careers, and many, many others. And Zamba was ultimately bought by the old BMG, which in turn was later bought by Universal Music Publishing. So we are half owned by Universal Music Publishing. On the other side, it was EMI, which over the last number of years has been step by step absorbed by Sony. And so we are now half owned by Sony Music Publishing and half owned by Universal Music Publishing.
Okay.
And the reason we were set up in 1983 was to represent libraries that the owner companies owned over in the UK and other territories, but primarily the UK. And there had been previous representation here by a third-party company that they were not happy with, and they decided to do it together. The library business was much smaller at that time than it is today in 1983, and today I think they would for sure set up their own companies rather than doing it together, but they set it up together, and that's how APM got founded. We're a joint venture on day one, and we remain, and I think we'll probably always remain, a joint venture. And so with our mission is to represent other third-party libraries in the United States and Canada. Those are the only markets that we deal with. So a little bit different than other libraries. And so we don't, for the most part, produce our own music. 99% of the music that we have is produced by the libraries that we represent. And our job is to decide which libraries to represent, and then to work with those libraries to make sure that we're getting the music that we want, it's of the quality that we want and the styles that we want and things. And we work very, very closely with those libraries. We have about 50 different suppliers. Not all of them are looking for new composers, but many of them do. So what we do is we have a page on our website, which I will email you afterwards because I don't remember the exact URL at the moment, and you can share it on your podcast that people can look at, and it gives an explanation of where and how to submit music to the libraries that are interested in receiving new submissions.
Okay.
So that's how it works for us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's a different setup for sure, but that's really good for people to know because, a lot of guys like me are always looking for new opportunities and new people to work with and just trying to expand, our reach and how we create music and that kind of thing. So, any help is always greatly appreciated for artists and producers and writers.
And,
so.
From our perspective also, our success is based on the quality of the music that we have.
Right.
So we wouldn't be in business without songwriters and composers.
Right, exactly.
Lyricists. So
sure.
It is incumbent upon us to really help.
Yeah.
And also we believe in supporting the community. APM is a community, and we try to foster a community around what we do because we really believe in it. In contrast to some other library companies and structures, our songwriters and composers share in our sync revenue in perpetuity. And so it's very, very important that we get people who are really, really good. And I think it's why APM, I think, stands out in some way.
Yeah.
Because we believe in quality, we have a passion for it, and we're very, very artist and composer centric.
That's great. Do you guys have I'll say like in a percentage way of, do you focus more on instrumentals as a production library? I feel like that's a greater number of music is done as instrumental as opposed to lyrical in most libraries. So do you guys kind of focus more on that side of thing, or is it pretty even for you, or how would you think that works for you guys?
Well, we focus on both, but more of the music that is used in productions are without vocals.
Right.
And so there is more score and underscore and things used overall than songs. And so obviously we have a lot of those, and we have a lot more of that kind of material than we have songs with lyrics. But having said that, we have tens of thousands of songs with lyrics,
right.
And we're always getting them in all the time. We release music on our website every month, and there's always new songs coming in various styles. And so that's very, very important. And also, we are very indie artist centric. We really like working with we want in music that reflects an indie artist style, and we also want to work with artists who are writing, performing, touring, marketing themselves under their own names, so that they have a social media presence, and maybe they tour, they play out, whatever. And so we even have a library dedicated to that we just started called Kinetic, and it's kind of an artist collective where particular library, an artist has to be actually be out there under their own name. And a lot of music supervisors in the industry are really looking for what they call authentic artists. We know that everybody who is writing is an authentic artist, but they use that phrase. And what they mean by that is an artist who has a social media presence. You can look them up online. You can follow them. They're on Spotify. You could stream their music. Maybe they tour if it's appropriate. And so that's the kind of, that's part of our overall approach to being artist and composer centric. So, and at the same time, there can be somebody who doesn't play out under their own name, but just writes an album of indie artist style music that is very, very good. And we, of course, have that as well.
That's great. And this is so good. Thank you for all this information. When people are writing music for you, do you find a greater, I don't say percentage, what genres, let me say it this way, what genres of music do you find are the least asked for what you guys do? Does that make sense? Sure. I know hip hop is huge, electronic is huge, that kind of thing. I know country is making a comeback in sync music, and for a long time people didn't want anything to do with country and sync really. But like with Yellowstone and Monarch and different shows like that, there are places for that now.
Sure.
But what do you guys find is like something that you don't really get a lot of, so that people listening are like, okay, I kind of need to maybe not do that. Who think I should do that?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, obviously hip hop is very big, rock, pop, hybrid styles of hybrid trailer music or hybrid hip hop of some kind. And music for sports is very big. And then also, the underscore and the score stuff is very popular and very steady. There's, especially on the underscore side, there's a lot of storytelling where they don't want the music to be the focus. They want it to just be in the background and to move the story along. And so that is very, very important. And we are looking at commercials. They often want something that's just, if it doesn't have lyrics, then they want something that's just kind of happy and upbeat and motivating and poppy. And if it does have lyrics, they want lyrics that help tell a story of some kind that would relate potentially to a product. It could be about taking care of yourself, or health, or love, or romance, or friendship, or breaking up, or some kind of thematic lyrical structure. So the songs that we have are very, very important. In terms of genres that are not requested as much, I would say, probably jazz.
Okay.
Although people do ask for jazz, and we have a lot of it, and we do get continue to get new pieces in. And I'm actually, while we're talking, I'm just going to my website and I'm just going to look at the list of genres and see if I can give you something in a little bit more depth.
Sure. I would say jazz is probably more asked for at Christmas time, just because of Christmas music is basically jazz music.
But we also have a lot of Christmas music that's tagged Christmas music.
Sure.
So
sure.
People might ask for that specifically. I would say maybe blues and jazz are probably not asked for as much. Country is not asked for as much.
Doesn't mean don't do it.
Right.
Just be aware that that's not necessarily the bread and butter of what you're
right.
going.
It's not going to be the largest thing. Religious music, marches, military band, some of depending on what it is, the kitsch retro stuff, traditional dance styles. That's about it, But again, I do want to emphasize that you never know when somebody's going to use something and they're going to ask for something.
Yeah.
And one of the stories I tell is that I did 5 albums with Hal David. And for those who don't know, Hal David and Burt Bacharach were the writing team of Bacharach David and wrote many of the great songs of the second half of the 20th century, including The Look of Love, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, Alfie, What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And he did 5 albums for us, and we were having lunch one day, and he said, he had looked at his ASCAP statement the day before, and he was amazed that there was a track that he had written with his writing partner, John Kakavas, who was the composer. Of course, Hal wrote the lyrics, that had not really gotten used at all. And on the statement, there was a line item for $25,000 being paid to him for use of the track, and it was either Belgium or Holland. I can't remember which one. Wow. And somebody had got glommed onto it and loved it and used it like 1 million times in something, and it aired a lot. And he got this enormous check out of something that really had done nothing before.
That's crazy.
So that doesn't mean to go purposefully at writing a style that nobody's going to be interested in.
Yeah.
Right. But
that means there's potential for anything.
There is. But be realistic and know that there are certainly certain styles and genres are going to be more common and more popular.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing also, that the more popular and contemporary the style of what you're offering, it may mean that it has a shorter shelf life.
Mm.
It depends, and there's so many factors involved in that. We have a very, very large and important collection of archival library music. And one of our founding libraries, KPM, which is owned by Sony now, was founded in the 1940s through the merger of 2 other music companies and small kind of libraries. And it became the preeminent library in the world. And it really defined the sound of British television for something close to 25 years. And much of that came over here and was licensed by the predecessor to APM. So we still get performance revenues every quarter from ASCAP and BMI for the music in Superman, the black and white George Reeves Superman.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
And because it was produced, I believe, from 1956 to 1960, and the music from 1957 to 1960 was all KPM for the most part. Okay. The Spider-Man cartoon series in 1969, other than the theme, we had hundreds and hundreds of tracks in those that we still get payment for. Those were from KPM and from JW Media, another very important archival library. So you never know. Some of the things may never go out of style, and a lot of those things continue to get used today. Yeah. Some of our most popular songs are quite old.
That Spider-Man, the 67, Spider-Man 67 year, those 2 or 3 years they put that cartoon out, that's still the best Spider-Man, I think.
Yeah.
Of all the all
Had
the
that
animated
theme,
ones.
Spider-Man,
Yeah, but
Spider-Man.
just the show itself is still, I think,
Yeah,
still one of the best. But
I agree.
so that's super cool that you guys are connected with that and with the Superman show. That's really neat. I was going to tell you, you mentioned what the world needs now is love, and having a connection to that. So I I produced a cover version of that with a friend of mine.
Uh, send
Back,
send it along. We
I
also offer
will.
covers.
I will do it. Yeah, but we just you said that, and it popped in my head. It's like, oh man, yeah, I did a cover for that because I did some covers for Universal Music Publishing back during lockdown in 2020, and they had I got connected with somebody there, and I said, do you guys ever take covers? And she's like, she immediately emailed back and with a whole list of like, actually, we need covers of all of these songs. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So, I kind of, that never happens to me. So I got, kind of got a foot in the door there and started creating
That's
all these
great.
covers. So it was exciting to be a part of, kind of be a part of that and do some things there. So
Yeah, I think that if you listen to what's happening in like trailer music today, and to some degree in commercials, there is a growth in the use of reimagined covers. These are not
exactly.
covers that are forensically exactly like the original. These are really reimagined,
Right.
and
Which is what
people
this
are
is.
looking for those.
Yeah.
And so.
And I've always told people on the show, we've talked about that before, is that, when people are asking, like you guys are asking for covers, it's usually they want like an opposite version of what the original is. If it's upbeat and happy at original, they want like a dark, haunting version, instead. So it's kind of more what this is. But anyway, you mentioned that, and that was a cool.
Yeah,
cool
look, songs can be done in any kind of style.
Do you guys get a lot of? Do y'all get a lot of asks for covers? Is that a big thing for you guys? Do you?
Yeah, and they're not on our website, our regular website. We have a separate one called covers at covers.apmmusic.com, so that we don't separate the two. We don't mix the two because we don't have the publishing rights for the covers. Obviously, you're just getting the master right to the cover. You would have to go out and clear the publishing yourself. And but we do get asked for covers a lot, and we do supply a lot of covers, and we have ones that are very kind of normal sounding, some sounding like the original to some degree, but we also do have reimagined ones, and that's an area of growth for us as well. So always open to hearing about that directly. Now for that we don't need a supplier, so we would be, for people offering reimagined covers, we would be able to work directly with the artist.
Okay, I see. Well, that's encouraging.
I want to add one little story. Just
sure.
Many years ago, I lived in Manhattan in the Village, right near a very well-known club called The Bottom Line, and they used to have an artist series, writer series. It was called In Their Own Right, WRITE, and the one of the people they had there was a guy named Al Cooper. Most younger people aren't going to know who Al Cooper is. I'm sure he's still alive. But he was a founding member. He was a founder of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and he did many other things. And he wrote a song that was a dirge, like very sad, slow song, and gave it to his manager. And this was in the '60s, and he went to England to work and do stuff, and there was no internet in those days or cell phones, and he wasn't in touch with his manager for a long time. And he was there for a number of months and came back. And it turns out that somebody had done that song in a bubblegum style, and it became a huge hit, and it was called This Diamond Ring, and it was done by Gary Lewis and the Playboys. And for those that don't know it, you could go on to Spotify or Apple Music and listen to it, This Diamond Ring. But he was telling the story of how he wrote it in a completely different style, and then when they did it, essentially they reimagined it and it became a huge hit. He made more money from that than any other thing he ever did.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing how that works. But it's also encouraging to know that there are so many different ways that for a song to be interpreted, and that it can be successful in multiple ways. I know a lot of country and pop songs have gone from, start off country and then a pop person put it out, and then became another huge hit, so it's been huge in multiple genres at this point, so that's exciting to hear. that it happens for a lot of different people in a lot of different genres, not just in necessarily the mainstream world. So I did want to ask you this. I'm assuming the answer is going to be exclusive, but does APM, when you sign music and writers to work with you, whatever songs that get put into the library for all the people you're connected with, is it always exclusive? Do you do non-exclusive? Do you do a mixture of both, or how do you prefer to do those things?
We only do exclusive.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And we don't really believe in the non-exclusive model. I think to have multiple people promoting and trying to license the same track is confusing. Many of the studios and networks will not work with non-exclusive suppliers, and because they don't even know whom to pay, or if there's an infringement issue, whom to go after, who's going to protect. A non-exclusive supplier is not allowed to sue for copyright infringement, so you have to be exclusive or the owner of the copyright in order to be able to do it. So there are a lot of issues around non-exclusivity. There's also a glut of product out in the market, so having things non-exclusive in 5 different places doesn't help that glut. It only makes it worse. Also, a lot of the non-exclusive companies change the title and put it out under different names often, and so it's I think it's problematic. And the audio recognition systems that are used by a lot of the societies now to pay performance revenue, they're not going to know who the entitled party is. The YouTube Content ID system won't know who the entitled party is, and so things go into a holding pattern, into a suspense account, and nobody gets paid. So I think that quality artists should work with exclusive libraries. And there are many of them. As I think I'm the chairman of the Production Music Association. And if you go to pmamusic.com, you can see a list of the libraries. All the libraries there are exclusive. And I think it's the best way. You hire somebody to represent your content, essentially, or you're working with somebody to represent your content. If you were writing a book, you'd only give it to one publisher. If you did a movie, it's only one person distributing it. Why should music be any different? The logic and the mechanisms of marketing and building a client base for a product are no different than any other form of intellectual property. And so that I have a strong, as you can tell, belief in the exclusive model.
Okay. So when you sign someone to write exclusive, that's referring to the songs that they are writing for you, that the songs are exclusive to APM. But
or to one of the libraries we represent.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But as far as the writer or producer, they can write for multiple libraries, but it's only, if I write for you, the songs I write for you are exclusive to you, but I can also write music for another library that's separate music, and that's exclusive to them. Right. So you're not exclusive to the artist, but just to the songs the artist gives to you.
We don't represent artists. We represent music.
Right. Okay.
And so now, if it could be that one of the libraries we represent wants somebody to write exclusively for them for a period of time, but if that's the case, that should be the quid pro quo should be that they're willing to commit that you will write a certain amount of material that they will take in.
Sure.
And, assuming they like the material. And because you don't want to be exclusive to somebody and they say, oh, we don't need anything for a year, So in the past, libraries, including some of the ones we represent, really they were developing artists in the sense that they found somebody and they brought them into the library world and they nurtured them and they helped grow them and train them and whatever it was, or they worked to help build their career. So even though they weren't managing the artist, they spent a lot of time and effort with that artist, that writer, songwriter, or composer. So they didn't want somebody just to go off and write to somebody else, with somebody else.
Right.
So there could be, and I believe there are a few libraries, maybe some that we represent, that really prefer for you as a writer to work just with them, at least for some period of time. But many, if not most, library writers today keep open the potential to write with many, different libraries.
Yeah.
So the key to the library business is writing a bunch of material. Because of the fact that you never know which track is going to get used, you want to have a good amount of material out there. Mm-hmm. There are composers who make their entire living from writing library music, but they've got a lot of material.
Right.
they've got good relationships with a library or a few libraries, and that's how they build their career.
So, do you? I know most libraries that I'm aware of only pay on the back end in the royalties. Some libraries will pay a fee up, like a sync fee or something up front. Like I'm talking about, like the instrumental production music kind of stuff. Some will pay an upfront, fee to write, and then you get royalties on the back. But most of them only do royalties on the back end.
Which means they're not paying at all, because those come from the performing rights societies, not from the library.
Right. So can I ask how you guys, are you allowed to talk kind of about how you guys do that kind of stuff?
So again, because APM doesn't really do its own music, it's through the libraries we represent, at least 99%. If we hire somebody directly, let's say for our Kinetic library or something, or one of our other small libraries that we're putting music directly in, where we're working directly with the composer gets 50% of our sync revenue. That's our general deal. There's some that are a little bit less for a variety of reasons, but generally speaking, that's the model. It's the old traditional model of the library business that we follow. And then they get the writer share of performance revenue. So, and because 75% of the revenue here in the US anyway comes from sync rather than performance, if you are giving up the sync, you're giving up the lion's share of the revenue. So we want our songwriters to participate in the sync revenue, and in virtually all of our libraries, I think all of our libraries, I mean, I don't look at their exact deals with their composers, but I know that most every library of ours does the same thing. I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but generally speaking, with virtually all of our music, the composers share in the sync revenue in perpetuity, in addition to getting the writer share of performance.
Okay.
And I think it's really one of the reasons why the APM library is so good.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. I just want people to kind of really have an understanding of, the differences in how different libraries work and the reasonings behind that. So I appreciate that. One thing I did want to ask real quick, because I know we got to wrap up here soon. I want to get some advice from you, but talking about the exclusive, non-exclusive thing, when it comes to cover songs and you're working directly with, is that you're doing the same model there? If you sign a cover song of somebody, that's going to be exclusive with you guys at that point?
So the cover material until now has been non-exclusive. So somebody wants to also take it somewhere else. However, we're doing more and more on the reimagined side, and we're putting more and more marketing effort into it. And the more marketing effort we put into something, the more we feel that we probably should have exclusive for some period of time, because we don't want somebody else to be able to, get the benefit of the work that we're doing, because we're investing time, effort, and money in it. So we'll probably, even though it's been non-exclusive for now, we'll probably change that model going forward. And but again, really wanting to do justice to the material and for the writer. And if we can't, we'll convert it to non-exclusive, or we'll just give up the track. We only want music that we can do justice to for everybody.
Sure. How long is a contract typically when you sign songs? Is it a year, 3 years when you're doing exclusive stuff before you're willing to let it go, or?
Well, the traditional library model, and all the libraries we represent, like APM and other ones, they commission material from songwriters, and the music goes in the library in perpetuity. Okay. It's owned by the library, and the reason for that is that there's a lot of effort that goes into marketing all of this, and also, somebody could download something today and not use it for a year or 2 or 3, and you just never know. So that's the library model, generally speaking, that if you're going to write for a library, it goes into the library and it stays in the library.
Right. Yep.
If you're concerned about it, then I tell people, go write another track.
Right, exactly.
Um,
But
and
okay, so then as far as the covers though, if you're saying that, you're going to switch that model to exclusive, but if it
mhm.
doesn't, and nothing happens to it for a while and you're like willing to let it go, like do you have a
Probably
time
a couple of
frame?
years,
Okay.
And then also on our indie artist music that we're with our Kinetic library, where we're not commissioning, but we're taking in independent artist music directly. I think we have a 2-year minimum,
Okay.
2 or 3, I can't remember exactly. We just want enough time to be able to market it, and not enough time for for clients to respond and to be able to use it, and get what our due is. And we have an old library called with an old partnership. It's about 13, 14 years old with Reverb Nation, and there's a bunch of independent artist material in there, and there is an option for artists to opt out at any time. And we do well with it, so most of the artists don't opt out. They just keep it in there, and it's exclusive to us for as long as they opt in. And but if they opt out, we give it back.
Yeah.
But that's different than how the traditional library model, where something is going in forever. And the only reason we do it this way is that an indie song that is current today may not be current or useful 2 years from now. So if somebody wants it back, generally speaking, that's fine.
Okay. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for all that. It's amazing. I know we need to wrap up because you got another meeting to get to, but so just as we wrap up here, beyond everything that we've already talked about, is there any advice that you can give to people that either as artists, writers, producers that want to write music for libraries that work with you, that you guys work with, or for people that would want to work for a library like APM or KPM or some of those other ones?
Sure.
What's some advice you would give to people that want to do either of those types of things?
So my overall advice for people is to come prepared.
Okay.
Educate yourself. If you're on the writing side, then know what's out there. Listen to music and programming. See what is being used and how you might fit into that universe. If you're pitching to a particular library, go on their website, educate yourself about the new releases, understand what they do as much research as you can when you're coming into it. And if you're on the business side, I think the same thing. Understand the company you're dealing with. And when you're in an interview, I guess, firstly, understand what you might want to do. I mean, there are a variety of different roles. Sometimes you can see some of the different roles in a company. You can find it on LinkedIn and other places, and understand how you might want to fit in, and then educate yourself. And so come prepared. When I was being considered for the job at APM, and it was a totally out of the blue thing. And I wrote up a resume. I didn't have one before. I did a lot of research, and I wrote a letter along with my resume that said, these are the questions I would like answered my first day on the job. And I probably overdid it, but it was 5 pages long. And I sent it up with the resume, and they, interviewed me. And one of the people interviewing me, I said, who was one of the most senior executives in the parent company, in one of the parent companies, said, "Did you get my letter? Did you have a chance to look at it?" And he said, "Yes, that's why you're here."
Nice.
So be prepared. I've had people coming in for interviews who literally, they say to me in the interviews, "So what do you do?" Like, what does your company do? Can you explain? Right. Come in knowledgeable. Also, if you're going to be on the business side, think about what skills you need in order to succeed in any business, and make sure you're good at Word and Excel, and some of the other modern SaaS softwares that people are using, and familiarize yourself with some of those, so you have a little bit of background, so you can say you're educated about those kind of things. And because people want to, you really, I mean, my first criteria is, are you a nice person who will be easy to work with no drama, and will you fit culturally into the company's culture? And that we consider before anything else. And so you need to have those kind of personal characteristics of interest and curiosity and being nice and being responsive and all of these things that are just part of kind of a common courtesy and a common part of the social contract.
Right.
And so those are very, very important. And then there are the intellectual or business skill kind of aspects where there are some things that are maybe necessary or important for the entire, no matter who the person is in the company, you want to be curious and you have to be open to new ideas and new ways of thinking. You have to be interested in growing. And I like it when people in my company attack a particular area that isn't their area of responsibility and try to become an expert at it. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I like it when people are innovative. I like when they go beyond the job description. I like people who are customer centric and able to do so. And so all of that on the business side are things that help somebody feel, hey, you know what? I really would like to work with this person.
That's great. Well, thank you for all that amazing advice and information. I'm so grateful and excited for people to hear all that we've got to discuss today. So thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it very, very much, and hope you have a great rest of the day. I know you got another meeting to get to, so I'm going to let you go
No worries.
do all that. But thank you, and hopefully if ever I get back out to California, or if you ever come to Nashville, love to get together in person and go get lunch and to say thank you. And
I would love that.
Meeting in person
please
someday.
Reach out, and I'm sure we'll be in touch anyway.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, guys, there you have it. I hope you had a great time listening to our conversation today. I hope you take what we've talked about today and find ways to apply it to your career as well. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. And please share it with all of your friends so that we can continue to get this message out to everyone around the world. Remember, Edenbrook Productions is here to help if you need consulting services via phone, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime. Let us know how we can help you begin to make a living in the music industry.